What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, just when you thought things couldn't get any weirder when it comes to the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal, it appears that gamers are now suing to block the acquisitions themselves, and we'll go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and some good news, it appears, when it comes to its release date that's less than 6 months out now. And we'll also be taking a look at a big year-end sale that is currently live that you want to keep your eye on as we head towards Christmas. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with WB Montreal and what could be next for that studio. We can see this posted up over on Twitter. This from James, who says, according to LinkedIn, WB Montreal has officially started production on their next DC game. We can see the listing on LinkedIn showing the senior producer on Gotham Knights at WB Games, and now senior producer on an unannounced project that just going up December 2022. And now people clearly thinking ahead as to what could be next for the studio after the unfortunate turnout for Gotham Knights. And there's a whole lot of issues with that game. I know the 30 FPS cap was one of the big talking points for it, but that game just fundamentally, with the mechanics, progression, all these things, it did not come out well. But an unannounced project now, people are thinking of things like Superman, which is something that consistently comes up in the rumor mill, and I think a lot of that has to do with people wanting a good Superman game, and it's a difficult superhero to make a game around because it's just very, very powerful. How do you figure that one out? And I mean, you could try to take away his powers like we've seen with something like Metroid Prime, give you everything right away and then knock it all out and you got to earn it back. But that's the one thing I would like to see figured out, is a new Superman game that would be good. But this being an unannounced project that just popped up on LinkedIn, it's gonna be a while before we see the next outing from WB Montreal. Also, we had some big news from Square Enix for Triangle Strategy, which is a game that came out earlier this year, so it hasn't even been a full calendar year yet for the game on the market, and we can see this over on Twitter. They say, thanks to all of you, Triangle Strategy has exceeded 1 million worldwide shipments and downloads. Thank you. They say to commemorate this, we are having a 40% off sale. Please check it out if you haven't played it yet. And this is great news because it does show that there is a place on the market for these more old school Japanese strategy RPGs. And obviously the aesthetic, the HD 2D style, I mean, it works still. Like, it is an awesome looking set of games that use that HD 2D setup. And if you take a look now at being 40% off, this is a great title to pick up on the Switch or even Steam and play it on a Steam Deck. But awesome to see that Team Asano continues to roll on here with Octopath Traveler 2 coming up here pretty soon. I think that one is going to do really well for them just based on some of the numbers we've already seen. Oh, and after that Forspoken demo released, well, the reception online wasn't great. However, some of the feedback that was given appears that Square is listening and making some changes, which we can see this over on Twitter from Forspoken saying, we're listening to all your feedback and can confirm that the full game will have increased text size, button mapping, and fix the HDR issues that some players are experiencing, which HDR was brought up quite a bit. It kind of washed out the entire image. It didn't look great. But button mapping, okay, sure, and they increased text size, which the text was oddly small in the game. They show some before and after pictures here for that one specifically, but Forspoken, at least for me, I mean, I have to start from the beginning on this because I kind of feel like they just threw us into the mix and you had all these options. You really know how to use them, even though they tried to give you a crash course on it. This is a game that I think they have to feed you slowly when it comes to the powers and get it all worked up to where at the end you can combo all this stuff together confidently, but wasn't the best impression with that demo. So I'm hoping the full game is able to get things figured out a bit better for you from the beginning. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Microsoft, Activision Blizzard, and another lawsuit that's been put into motion here. Let's head over to Bloomberg, where they did break the story saying Microsoft sued by gamers over $69 billion Activision deal. They say, like the FTC, the gamers are seeking a court order prohibiting the companies from consummating the transaction. The complaint cites concerns that the merger would give Microsoft enough clout over multiple levels of the gaming industry to foreclose rivals, limit output, reduce consumer choice, raise prices, and further inhibit competition. They say, quote, Microsoft already controls one of the industry's most popular and largest video game ecosystem. The proposed acquisition would give Microsoft an unrivaled position in the gaming industry, leaving it with the greatest number of must-have games and iconic franchises. We did have an update from Microsoft. A spokesperson did kind of reply to all this, saying this deal will expand competition and create more opportunities for gamers and game developers as we seek to bring more games to more people. They do have a bit of a rundown here over on Bloomberg Law as well, with calls of action relief and attorneys. The relief they cite is an injunction against the merger, invalidation of the deal's termination fee provisions, costs, and fees. Also, very quickly, I want to read Reuters' headline because it did make me laugh a little bit. They say, video gamers sue Microsoft in U.S. court to stop Activision takeover. We typically refer to as just gamers, right? But they're video gamers. I think that's how it's referred to in the lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. It's just, for some reason, that phrase, video gamers, and seeing that at the top of Reuters just made me laugh a little bit. They're kind of that how do you do, fellow kids moment. But this lawsuit, they do at least have their maybe even better points at times in this than what we've seen from the FTC themselves. One in particular that stood out to me was citing things like storefronts, which if you've seen recently in tech with the FTC, so storefronts seem to be a hot button topic. Most of the control and even consolidation of them. And it was pointed out Battle.net will essentially have no real reason to exist when Microsoft acquires Activision Blizzard. That'll be shuttered, and yeah, technically, it would eliminate one piece of competition from the market, just completely wiping out a storefront. Now, it appears along with the firm, of course, they're represented by 10 different video gamers that are part of the lawsuit here, and it was mentioned that most, if not all of them, were PlayStation gamers, and they clearly looking at this as, okay, a lot of these games, including Call of Duty, could potentially go away from their system in the future. And I guess technically if they were Xbox gamers, most people who are playing Xbox are fine with the deal as it is, because we really assume, looking at this, that Xbox is going to get a ton of games right off the bat with Game Pass when this deal goes through. So it was just something to note there that was brought up during the lawsuit, is that many of them feel very strongly for PlayStation and are concerned about what could happen here with the games they'd have access to if this deal went through. That, of course, inciting all of the standard competitive issues we've heard from the FTC and more. A few other things we've heard over the last day or so includes the UK regulator, the CMA, this from Christopher Dring, received over 2,100 emails from the public about the Activision Blizzard acquisition. Roughly 75% were in favor of the deal and 25% were against the deal. The arguments were broadly the same as what PlayStation, Xbox have put forward already. So this, once again, is something that's going to really continue into 2023, and I believe now, because the FTC is moving to sue and work to block this deal and becoming very aggressive now, it will most likely go beyond the June 2023 really what they were estimating to close this with. And now hearing about a lawsuit with 10 video gamers who were involved, well, you can kind of look at that and say, maybe they're feeling that Microsoft will just work to pay whatever it would, like, settle essentially with that lawsuit. It could just be essentially a payday on that side, but it's just more and more roadblocks and issues that Microsoft is running into with this very large acquisition, which somehow now we are to a point. On Reuters, it was brought up that Microsoft could be moving to have Netflix on their shopping list next year, which you can see it right here from Reuters. Netflix will be next on Microsoft's shopping list, going over the idea that Microsoft could move to acquire what would be a larger acquisition than what we are currently seeing with Activision Blizzard next year, which I think raised a lot of people's eyebrows, but also had some people rolling their eyes because the Activision Blizzard deal is going through such scrutiny now. Microsoft turning around and buying what would eclipse easily $100 billion to acquire Netflix, that would probably have a much harder time going through, especially when we look at the overall scope and the reach of Netflix currently. But just when you think we're all done with the twists and turns and the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition, they hit you with another curveball there, now with the video gamers getting involved. We'll see, I guess, how all of this turns out heading into 2023. Next up, let's talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This game is due out May 12th, 2023, so we're, less than 6 months away from this game release. It's hard to believe we're that close to its release because we haven't seen a ton about this game, and that is something that's bringing up a lot of questions around this title, even making that May 12th release. Well, something's been happening over the past several weeks, and the game itself is being rated all across the world, and now we have seen it rated with the ESRB, which we can see that here, coming in with an E10 plus rating. I believe that's the same as Breath of the Wild, so no real surprise there. I guess some were thinking maybe a teen rating could be in play, but I think Nintendo knows they want to try to get that E rating as much as possible, E10 plus, of course, being the next best thing there. And it being rated now by the ESRB as well as other ratings boards, those continue to pile in. It at least is adding confidence to a series that has consistently been delayed in the past many, many times. These large 3D Zelda games seems like they are on track for that May 12th release, despite there just not being a lot of information out there around the game. I mean, we have seen at least the idea and the scope that they're aiming for here, which looks much larger than we had with Breath of the Wild, which is already a pretty big open world, a massive undertaking for a lot of the small details even that were added in for The Legend of Zelda, that move to the open world or true open world experience. Go and do whatever you want and have the adventure you want to have. Now we're taking to the sky. It appears there are multiple levels. There are patents talking about firing arrows while you're falling and acrobatics, and we're seeing a door that can fly. I mean, the door is everything, apparently. We've made jokes about that on the podcast, but a lot of that has to do with just the lack of information we're getting around a title that is going to be a massive release for Nintendo and is coming out in less than 6 months. I believe as we get into 2023 here in a couple of weeks, we'll start to hear rumblings about maybe a big direct that could be capped off by a bunch more information for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, or maybe it gets its own direct. I think that would be most likely to have a direct or treehouse where they just play the game and show it off, and that way they can set up this massive release for 2023. But to me, this is just good news because it does look like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will indeed be releasing in May with all these ratings coming in, and now seeing the ESRB drop an E10 plus on it. Now it's just kind of waiting until Nintendo is ready to have that big blowout Tears of the Kingdom moment with most likely a presentation like a direct in Treehouse. Next up, let's talk about day 3 of Nintendo's holiday indie event. We can go over here to Nintendo Life. Again, they've been updating this page as more and more games have been revealed, and we do have shadow drops like we've seen the past couple of days here. Let's start from the top though with Potion Craft, this Alchemist Simulator. It's out spring 2023. I believe I saw this game pop up on Game Pass, and I took a look at some of the screenshots, the little trailer they had, and it was just that. I mean, you're going through a series of menus, you're making these different potions for the townspeople, and that was kind of it. I didn't even check it out on Game Pass. I don't know if I'd be checking it out on the Switch, but certainly a unique idea for a game. I'll say that. We have Sonority. It's a musical puzzle game. You'll navigate musical ruins with your raccoon friends. So that's okay. They have Tin Hearts. That's out April 20th, 2023. A Rogue Son's inventive lemming-style puzzler. It's beautifully animated and comes from many of the folks who brought us Fable. Okay, that's pretty cool. Check that one out. And then Sail Forth, it's out now. It's a sailing simulator, and they were showing it off a bit here, and I did get maybe just some memories of Wind Waker, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, kind of coming back to me. Not that you're getting off of the boat and going to different dungeons or any of that, just kind of the sailing aspect to it. And looking at the different reveals they had here, well, it was pretty cool to see more shadow drops. Probably the weakest of the 3 days so far. Sail Forth maybe being the most interesting one that is out now, and I guess we'll look towards the next couple of days here. Still crossing my fingers that Sports Story will be there, and I think that's the way that they cap everything off on the final day, but I guess we'll see. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a big year-end sale that is currently ongoing. And in fact, the games that are taking part in this are changing out on the fly, as I checked it multiple times throughout the day, and I saw things like Last of Us Part 1 show up in stock and then get pulled off of it. So you want to keep an eye on this over the next couple of weeks because it will be live until January 3rd, and these are all physical copies of the games. It's not a digital sale. It's over on Gamefly. And by the way, I did order some titles from their last sale they did. They all showed up complete in the cases with the cover art. No manuals, of course, because who needs those anymore? But it was in almost like new condition. I was pretty surprised once again with what they were sending out there. But let's take a look here over on their page for the year-end sale. We have the PS5 games at the top. Again, these were changing throughout the day, so I would be consistently coming back to this one. But Saints Row 2022 is already down to $15. You know what? For a laugh and just kind of having some fun with a game, I could recommend Saints Row at $14.99. So there you go. Lego Brawls at $14.99. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed at $14.99. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, I did enjoy that game. It was kind of glitchy, had a lot of screen tearing to it, but again, at $14.99, that's a pretty easy one to recommend. The DioField Chronicle at $27.99, I did enjoy that one quite a bit, so that is an easy recommendation there. Sonic Frontiers at $39.99, we've seen it cheaper multiple times. That kind of goes for Gotham Knights as well, although once again, these are all physical games, so if you're a collector, you might be kind of thinking, okay, I definitely want to get these and put them on my shelf. Then No More Heroes 3 in there at $29.99. Moving over to the Switch, we have WarioWare Get It Together at $34.99. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, that coming at $29.99. New Pokemon Snap, $34.99. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, that one's down to $39.99. And then we have Bayonetta 3 already down to $39.99. Jumping over to the Xbox, we have The Quarry, that one at $14.99. Evil Dead the Game at $14.99. Psychonauts 2, that's the Mother Lobe edition at $39.99. I think that's a cool one to have just kind of as a collector's piece there, even though it is in Game Pass and all this. Soul Hackers 2, $24.99. Madden NFL 23, that one down to $34.99. New Tales from the Borderlands Deluxe Edition at $19.99. And then once again, I'll point this out, the DioField Chronicle, $27.99. So not too bad overall, but definitely check in throughout the next couple of weeks to see if any other games come back in stock and get posted on that page. As I said, I saw The Last of Us Part 1 go up, and I think that was sitting at $39.99 for the physical copy, and then other first-party Sony games for the PS5 were going in and out of stock. So you might be able to grab a couple of those pretty cheap, especially if you're thinking maybe you'll be getting a new system for Christmas. Might not be a bad time to pick up some cheap games to go along with it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, are you looking to get a new game system this holiday? 79% said no, new game system this year. The PS5, though, leading the way at 7% for all the different systems. Look, it's a Steam Deck at 6%. The Xbox Series at 4%, and then the Switch at 4%. Curious if Pokemon is maybe driving some of those Switch sales up. Although, hey, the Switch keeps selling as it is. It's just interesting to see it right there with the Series, Xbox Series, and even technically close to the PS5, despite it being almost 6 years old now. But yeah, let me know if you're hoping or expecting even to get a new game system down below in the comments. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Justin saying, it's honestly kind of wild to me that PSVR 2 has boxes at all. I'm so accustomed to Steam VR and Oculus titles just being digital. Yeah, that is something I thought about. Virtual reality games, I kind of view them as digital games as well, and probably has to do with PC being a big driving force for VR right now, along with Oculus. Those are both just digital-only purchases. So you look at PlayStation VR 2, and they will have to have something on the box, but maybe it's because with the first PlayStation VR, it was such a pain to change out discs since you had to take the headset off. At least with the PSVR 2, you'll have the kind of the see-through mode with the cameras on the outside. It'll make it a little easier to do that, but that is something, that being VR, that I do sort of position more as a digital device when it comes to the games. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the video gamers actually moving to sue and block the Microsoft Activision deal? How do you think all of that's gonna shake out? And then also, what about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdoms? All these ratings coming in now with E10+ for the ESRB. What do you think Nintendo's plans are over the next 5 or 6 months when it comes to the run-up for this big game? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.